Hello and welcome to the second video on how to optimize your renders. This approach is suitable for fast interior renders and for fast pre-visualizations as well. This is how it will look in the end. And take a look at the times. It's only 1 minute and 18 seconds with volumetric lights, and it's being rendered on only one GTX 1080 Ti. If I add this card, it will be about 20% faster, and without volumetric lights it will take about 35 seconds only. So let's get to it. This is the default scene from the blender.org demo files, the classroom. Now it looks like this. Oh, yeah, except for these vases. I added them to show you how the optimized glass will look like, and the caustics, which I've shown you in the previous video. So let's get started to optimize it. First of all, we need to do the sampling. I will make it 14 for direct and 1 for indirect, and switch to branched path tracing, of course. Samples all to 1, render to 64 samples, preview to 8 is sufficient enough. The next one, light paths. We need to zero all this down, filter velocity to 0.5 and disable the refractive caustics. Next, we need to remove all the lights we don't need right now. So let's select all the lights, and let's leave it like this. Just remove this one and I'll disable the sun. And here's one mesh light. I want to remove that as well. Okay, here it is. Next one, world settings. We need to enable all the checkboxes here. Set it to none for uniform color of the background. Set it to white for starters, and strength to 1. Next one, very important thing, is to simplify the rendering. Check this checkbox and set AO bounces to 1, and for rendering also. This way the environment map or the background will act like AO. I don't know why, but it is, with AO bounces set to 1. If you set to 2, it will bounce back off the walls. So leave it to 1, and you don't need to activate ambient occlusion checkbox, just to lower the factor to 0.1, and distance, I'll switch it over to none. Okay, and distance to 0.5. It can be from 0.1 to 0.5. It all depends on you and how fast you would like to render the scene. So let's leave it like this. Okay, if I go down here, it'll be completely black, right? And this thing actually simulates the GI. Now let's add some back and crank up the strength to 160. It will be very, very strong because the sun is very strong. Okay. Now, let's add the simulation of the environment light by adding a light source outside the windows and increase the size of it and rotate 90 degrees, pointing the window's direction, and scale it. Now, the trick is not to use this light to light the whole scene, because it will give you a lot of noise in the areas like ceiling and those areas. You can see like this. I will use this light only for lighting the outer part of the window. So it will be like 20, I guess, and duplicate this light and move it inside the interior. Position it like this approximately, and set the strength to 100 or even 200. Yeah, I think it is. Okay, now the next step is to set the lights, which are not that important in the scene, to don't have the multiple important sampling. It will decrease the number of, not the number, but the quantity of the noise, and set the max bounces to 0 and samples to 1. You don't want to do this to this light that simulates the environment, because it won't affect the glossy that way. So we'll leave the multiple important sampling and as this, and max bounce to just 1. Now let's add transparency to the glass, right? Transmission to 1, glossy to 1 for the chrome elements, like these chairs. You can see we can't do it without glossy. So let's do it like this. Now we need to fix the shader for this glass. I'll just mix it with transparency shader, something like this, and the wall clock and the vases are using the same technique, the same shader that I've been showing you in the previous video, so you can check that out. Okay, the next step is to configure the sun a little bit. We'll set max bounce to 1 and samples to 4. Okay, and of course enable the denoising. We can increase it a little bit to get a smoother result. Now, the very important part of this is now we don't have secondary light bounces, so we need to simulate that. So you can just look at the scene and decide where you want to put secondary light emitters, like this place on the table, on the desk, and on those desks as well. And what is more important is on the ceiling. So let's do it right now. I'll add one light here. Flip it over. And adjust the angle a little bit. Okay, now it's too strong now, and I will lower it to 10. And duplicate this as an instance, right? Place them on the every desk. This is not necessary because you don't see them, but well, why not, right? And the next one, I'll duplicate this for the floor and place it on the floor. Selection to cursor. Rotate 180 degrees. Move it a little bit over the floor. Increase the size to match the pattern on the floor of the light, right? And increase the, that's too much, increase something like 40 maybe. Well, you can see the effect of this. It's like light bounces off the floor and light up the chairs. Okay. The next step. Oh, by the way, let's render it. Okay. I'll hit render. Yeah, one more performance for GPU. I will set it to 128. And let's render it. Oh, and one more. Beckman-Harris algorithm must be used in this case. I'll pause the video and return when it's done. Okay, now it's done, and as you can see, we have caustics here. Yeah, it's pretty neat, and everything's pretty smooth, right? And it only took 55 seconds to render. And by the way, I've changed the settings of the lights on those two. It's 300 and the outer is also 300, something like this. But you can play around with it to get the nice result. Okay, the next step is to add a volume light. This is actually very expensive to render if you add this as usual, like volumetric shader here and light up the scene, but we can make it very fast. Let's make a full copy of the scene and set up this one. No, I'll rename it to volume. Now we need a shader that will be a holdout shader that will replace or override all the shaders in the scene. I'm creating this cube just for making a new shader. Call it holdout. Okay, it's here, right? And we can remove the cube. Now hit the render button. Now we need to remove all the lights in the scene except for the sun. Just delete it. Remove all the bounces. Change the sun lamp to the spot lamp. Let's increase the size of it and strength crank up really high to 100,000. And now choose the material to override all the materials in the scene. We can see it right here. Oh, you can see nothing, but I can show you for the time's sake. It's like this. Okay. Now disable it and go to the world settings. Add another shader, volume. Oh, I'm sorry, volume scatter. Delete this. Plug it into the volume density to 0.1. Now let's configure the sun a little bit more. It'll be max bounces of 0, samples of 1, I guess. It's not necessary. Increase the sun size to something like 0.1. Increase the density to 0.2. We'll get a blurry result. Let's add volume samples and volume samples to 4. Okay, let's try it out. How it looks. I'll duplicate that. Choose the volume. Here will be the main scene. Render this up. Okay, now it's all done, and it took only 29 seconds to render. You can play around with the configuration of this setup, but I will show you how it should look in the end. The volume light looks like this. We need to increase the contrast by powering it up to 4 and the slope to 4 about, and it will look something like this. It doesn't really matter that it has some splotchiness because it has a very subtle effect on the scene. So let's add this via the add and 0.1 factor. So I guess this is it. And oh yeah, one more thing. There is a barbershop scene from the Agent 27. I can't remember the right name of the movie, but well, I've downloaded the scene from the blender.org site and tried to optimize the scene with this approach, and I have 2 minutes 30 seconds, almost perfect result. Just a little bit of noise in the speculars, but we can just increase the samples for speculars and get a very clean result. I can show you the scene that I try to render just right from the original file. This is how it looks when I render it without denoiser, and it's all nasty and noisy. And this is how it looks with denoiser and a lot of samples, but it took 9 minutes to render and it's still not perfect, right? This is my scene. It's lit a little bit differently because I just wanted to make it more realistic. It's more like cartoonish style, and maybe it's more appropriate for the film, but I did it like this. Added some more realistic light here. If you take a look at this one, right? Some reflections on the glass surfaces. It doesn't have it here. Well, it renders very fast, and the glass shader is also the same as I showed you before. So if you want to take a look at how did I do this optimization for this particular scene, you can write down below this video in the comment section, and I will make that one. So thanks a lot, guys, for watching, and well, happy blending, right? See ya.